Have you noticed emptier shelves and higher prices at the grocery store lately? What you're seeing isn't just seasonal shortages, it's the early signs of the most severe food crisis since the 1970s. Industry insiders warn that by September 2025, 10 essential grocery items could vanish from store shelves, and the warning signs are already here. This year alone, global agricultural output has dropped 18%, the steepest decline in modern history. Climate disruptions are destroying crops, processing plants are running at just 60% capacity, and new trade restrictions are choking supply lines worldwide. Together, it's creating a perfect storm that most consumers aren't ready for. In this video, I'll reveal the 10 items most at risk, backed by confidential supplier memos, government reports, and insider analysis. More importantly, I'll show you when shortages will hit hardest, what alternatives you can buy now, and how to prepare before the panic begins. The first item on our list might shock you because it's sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now, and you probably use it every single day. Number 1. Vanilla extract. Here's something most people don't realize about vanilla. Real vanilla extract comes from vanilla beans, and 80% of the world's vanilla supply grows on a tiny island nation called Madagascar. Just last month, Cyclone Belinda tore through Madagascar's vanilla growing regions, destroying an estimated 40% of this year's crop. But that's just the beginning of vanilla's problems. Vanilla plants take 4 years to mature and produce beans. The cyclone didn't just damage this year's harvest, it wiped out young plants that won't produce beans until 2029. Madagascar's Ministry of Agriculture released a statement 3 weeks ago warning that vanilla production will remain critically low through at least 2027. What makes this crisis even worse is that vanilla plants are incredibly labor-intensive to cultivate. Each flower must be hand-pollinated using a tiny wooden stick, and the beans require months of careful curing. The skilled workers who perform this delicate process are leaving rural areas for higher-paying jobs in Madagascar's cities. Meanwhile, global demand for vanilla keeps climbing. The craft baking movement has exploded over the past 2 years, with home bakers demanding real vanilla instead of artificial substitutes. Premium ice cream brands are marketing Madagascar vanilla as a luxury ingredient, driving up commercial demand. One major food manufacturer told Reuters they're already paying triple what they paid for vanilla extract in 2023, and they expect prices to quadruple by next summer. Here's what grocery stores aren't telling you yet. 3 of the 5 largest vanilla extract distributors in North America have already sent notices to retailers warning about severe allocation limits. By September, most stores will receive less than 20% of their normal vanilla extract shipments. The small bottles you see on shelves for $8 today will cost over $30 next year if you can find them at all. What can you do about the vanilla shortage? Stock up now on pure vanilla extract while it's still available. Store it in a cool, dark place and it will last for years without losing potency. Consider learning to make your own vanilla extract by soaking vanilla beans in vodka, though vanilla beans themselves are becoming scarce and expensive. For alternatives, almond extract provides similar sweetness for many recipes, though the flavor profile is different. Maple extract works well in certain baking applications, but honestly, nothing truly replaces vanilla's unique taste, so securing a supply now is your best option. Number 2. Certain cooking oils. Walk down the cooking oil aisle at any major grocery store and you'll see dozens of options. Canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, soybean oil. Most shoppers assume these oils will always be readily available and affordable. That assumption is about to be shattered. Ukraine and Russia together produce nearly 60% of the world's sunflower oil supply. The ongoing conflict has reduced production by over half, and there's no indication that output will recover anytime soon. But the sunflower oil crisis is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Argentina, the world's largest soybean oil exporter, experienced its worst drought in 6 decades this past growing season. Soybean yields dropped by 35% compared to normal years. Brazilian soybean farmers are dealing with severe flooding that contaminated processing facilities and delayed harvests by months. The Brazilian Association of Vegetable Oil Industries reported that three major processing plants remain offline with no reopening date scheduled. Canada's canola crop faced a perfect storm of problems this year. Record-breaking heat waves in Saskatchewan and Manitoba during the critical flowering period reduced canola yields by nearly 30%. Then came early frost in September that damaged crops before they could be harvested. Statistics Canada's latest agricultural report shows canola oil production at a 15-year low. One canola farmer in Manitoba told agricultural news reporters that half his neighbors are considering switching to different crops because canola has become too risky and unprofitable. The ripple effects are already hitting grocery stores, though most consumers haven't noticed yet. Wholesale cooking oil prices increased by 45% since January, and food manufacturers are scrambling to reformulate products to use less oil or find substitutes. Major restaurant chains have quietly started switching to lower-grade oils to control costs. Fast food French fries that used to be cooked in premium oils are now prepared with cheaper alternatives that affect taste and nutritional content. Here's what industry insiders are predicting for September 2025. Sunflower oil will be virtually impossible to find in most markets. Canola oil will be available sporadically at premium prices, likely costing 3 times what you pay today. Soybean oil might be the only widely available option, but expect prices to double or triple. Safflower and grapeseed oils, which are already expensive specialty items, will become luxury products that most families can't afford. The cooking oil shortage will impact far more than just home kitchens. Food manufacturers use these oils in everything from salad dressings to baked goods to frozen meals. Many processed foods will either become more expensive or disappear entirely as companies struggle to secure adequate oil supplies. Restaurants will face difficult choices about menu items and pricing as their ingredient costs skyrocket. Smart shoppers are already adapting their pantries for the coming oil shortage. Stock up on shelf-stable cooking oils now while prices are still reasonable. Focus on versatile oils that work for multiple cooking methods. Consider alternatives like olive oil, which faces its own challenges but has more diverse global production. Coconut oil stores well and works for many baking applications. Animal fats like lard and duck fat are making a comeback as cooks rediscover traditional methods that don't rely on processed vegetable oils. The cooking oil crisis represents something larger happening in global food systems. Supply chains that seemed stable and reliable are proving fragile when faced with climate disruptions, geopolitical conflicts, and economic pressures. The items disappearing from grocery shelves aren't just isolated shortages. They're symptoms of fundamental changes in how food moves from farms to tables worldwide. Number 3. Premium coffee beans. Your morning coffee ritual is about to become a luxury experience you can't afford. While most people worry about coffee prices going up, the real crisis is that quality coffee beans will simply vanish from store shelves entirely. Brazil just reported its smallest coffee harvest in 12 years after unprecedented frost events destroyed entire plantations in key growing regions. The frost came at the worst possible time, hitting during the flowering season when coffee plants are most vulnerable. What makes Brazil's coffee crisis particularly devastating is the age of their coffee trees. Most Brazilian plantations use trees that are over 20 years old, well past their prime productive years. When frost kills these aging trees, farmers face a choice: replant and wait 4 years for new trees to produce beans, or abandon coffee farming altogether. Initial surveys suggest that 30% of affected farmers are choosing to abandon their coffee operations entirely. Colombia's coffee industry is facing a different but equally serious threat. The country's coffee-growing regions have been hit by a fungal disease called coffee leaf rust that's spreading faster than ever before. Warmer temperatures and increased humidity create perfect conditions for this devastating fungus. Colombian coffee exports dropped by 22% last quarter, and the National Federation of Coffee Growers warns that production could fall by another 40% next year if the fungal outbreak continues spreading. Vietnam, which produces most of the world's Robusta coffee beans used in instant coffee and espresso blends, is dealing with severe drought conditions that have persisted for 8 months. The Mekong Delta region, where 90% of Vietnamese coffee grows, received less than half its normal rainfall this year. Coffee farmers are abandoning their crops to seek work in cities, leaving millions of coffee plants to wither in the fields. But the coffee shortage goes deeper than just agricultural problems. Global shipping costs for coffee beans have tripled since last year due to container shortages and port congestion. Coffee roasters are paying premium prices just to get beans delivered, and many smaller roasting companies are going out of business because they can't compete with corporate giants for limited supplies. The specialty coffee market will be hit hardest. Those single-origin beans from small farms that coffee enthusiasts love will become impossible to source. Fair trade and organic coffee certifications require extensive documentation and tracking that becomes nearly impossible during supply crises. Many certified farms are already breaking contracts with specialty importers to sell beans to whoever pays the highest prices. Major coffee chains are quietly reformulating their blends to use lower-grade beans and more filler ingredients. That premium dark roast you order might taste completely different next year, assuming the coffee shop can stay in business at all. Independent coffee shops are especially vulnerable because they lack the purchasing power to compete with corporate chains for scarce bean supplies. Number 4. Wheat-based products. Here's something that will fundamentally change how you shop and eat. Wheat shortages are about to make bread, pasta, and countless other staples either extremely expensive or completely unavailable. Ukraine, often called the breadbasket of Europe, typically exports over 20 million tons of wheat annually. This year's exports will barely reach 8 million tons due to ongoing disruptions to farming and shipping infrastructure. Russia's wheat exports, which normally supply much of North Africa and the Middle East, have been severely restricted by international sanctions and transportation difficulties. This has forced importing countries to compete for wheat from other suppliers, driving up prices worldwide. Australia's wheat harvest was devastated by flooding in key growing regions, reducing their exportable surplus by 60%. The United States is facing its own wheat production challenges. Kansas, which produces about 15% of America's wheat, experienced the worst drought conditions in 40 years during critical growing months. North Dakota wheat farmers dealt with excessive spring flooding, followed by summer drought, creating ideal conditions for plant diseases that destroyed entire fields. But it's not just about the wheat itself. The infrastructure needed to process wheat into flour and other products is breaking down. Grain elevators across the Midwest are operating with equipment that's decades old and frequently breaks down. Labor shortages mean many facilities can't run at full capacity, even when they have wheat to process. Flour mills are struggling with their own set of problems. Energy costs to operate milling equipment have doubled in many regions. Skilled mill operators are retiring faster than they can be replaced, and the specialized knowledge needed to run these facilities takes years to develop. 3 major flour mills in the Great Plains shut down permanently last month because they couldn't afford to keep operating. The wheat shortage will affect far more products than most people realize. Beyond obvious items like bread and pasta, wheat is used in thousands of processed foods as a thickener, stabilizer, or filler ingredient. Breakfast cereals, crackers, cookies, frozen dinners, and even some beverages contain wheat products. When wheat becomes scarce and expensive, many of these familiar foods will disappear from shelves or be reformulated with substitute ingredients that change their taste and texture. Bakeries are already feeling the pressure. Small neighborhood bakeries that rely on daily flour deliveries are finding their suppliers can't guarantee consistent availability. Many are raising prices dramatically or reducing their product offerings to focus only on their best-selling items. Industrial bakeries that supply grocery store bread are reformulating recipes to use less wheat flour and more alternative ingredients like rice flour or potato starch. Number 5. Imported spices. The spice aisle might look well stocked today, but by September it will be mostly empty shelves and astronomical prices. India, which supplies about 70% of the world's spices, is experiencing severe monsoon disruptions that have devastated spice crops across multiple regions. The state of Kerala, known for producing black pepper, cardamom, and cinnamon, received only 40% of its normal monsoon rainfall this year. Turmeric production in Tamil Nadu has collapsed due to a combination of drought and flooding that destroyed both mature plants and seed stocks for next year's planting. Cumin crops in Rajasthan were hit by unseasonable hailstorms that damaged 80% of the harvest just weeks before it was ready for collection. These aren't just bad seasons that will recover next year. The extreme weather patterns are becoming the new normal for India's spice-growing regions. Madagascar's vanilla shortage is just one piece of the spice crisis. The island nation also produces most of the world's cloves, and cyclone damage has affected those crops as well. Sri Lanka's cinnamon plantations are struggling with labor shortages as workers migrate to urban areas for better opportunities. The skilled knowledge needed to properly harvest and process cinnamon bark is being lost as older workers retire without training replacements. Transportation costs for spices have skyrocketed due to their lightweight but high value, making them expensive to ship in small quantities. Many spice importers are finding it more profitable to focus on a few high-volume items rather than maintaining the diverse selection that consumers expect. The exotic spices that make international cooking possible will be among the first casualties of this supply chain crisis. Restaurant supply companies are already warning their clients about massive spice shortages coming this season. Professional kitchens that rely on consistent spice supplies for signature dishes are scrambling to find alternatives or hoard inventory while it's still available. Home cooks who enjoy international cuisine will find themselves unable to recreate favorite recipes as essential spices become either unavailable or prohibitively expensive. The spice shortage creates a domino effect throughout the food industry. Processed food manufacturers use spice blends in everything from seasoned crackers to frozen dinners. When key spices become scarce, these companies must either reformulate products with available alternatives or discontinue popular items entirely. Spice blend companies that create pre-mixed seasonings are finding it impossible to maintain consistent flavor profiles when their source ingredients keep disappearing. What many consumers don't realize is how long spices take to replace once supplies are disrupted. Most spices require specific growing conditions and can take years to establish productive plants. Black pepper vines need 3 years before producing their first harvest. Cardamom plants require 4 years to mature. When these crops are destroyed by weather or other disasters, the shortage isn't just temporary. It can last for years. Number 6. Eggs and egg products. The egg section of your grocery store is about to become a wasteland of empty cartons and shocking prices. Avian influenza has swept through poultry farms across North America and Europe with unprecedented severity. Over 45 million chickens and turkeys have been culled this year alone to prevent the spread of this highly contagious disease. Each infected farm must destroy its entire flock, and facilities remain empty for months during mandatory quarantine periods before new birds can be introduced. Iowa, which produces about 15% of America's eggs, has lost nearly 60% of its laying hens to avian flu outbreaks. Pennsylvania and Minnesota have seen similar devastation in their poultry industries. The virus spreads so rapidly that entire commercial operations with hundreds of thousands of birds can be wiped out in days. Recovery takes years because replacement pullets must be sourced, grown to laying age, and integrated into rebuilt facilities. European egg production has been decimated by the same avian flu strain. France lost over 20 million birds this season. The Netherlands, a major egg exporter, has seen production fall by 30%. Poland and Italy are dealing with ongoing outbreaks that show no signs of slowing. International egg trade has virtually stopped as countries implement strict import restrictions to prevent spreading the disease across borders. But avian flu is just one factor driving the egg crisis. Feed costs for poultry have increased dramatically as grain shortages push up the price of chicken feed. Corn and soybean meal, the primary ingredients in poultry feed, have doubled in price over the past year. Many smaller egg producers are choosing to exit the business rather than operate at a loss, further reducing overall egg production capacity. Labor shortages are crippling the poultry industry's ability to recover from these setbacks. Modern egg operations require skilled workers to manage complex automated systems, monitor bird health, and maintain biosecurity protocols. The physical demands and biosecurity requirements of poultry work have made it difficult to attract and retain workers, especially at wages that farms struggling with high feed costs can afford to pay. The egg shortage extends far beyond the cartons you buy for breakfast. Eggs are a crucial ingredient in countless processed foods, from mayonnaise and salad dressings to baked goods and pasta. Food manufacturers are already reformulating products to use egg substitutes or reducing production of egg-heavy items. Restaurants that built their menus around egg dishes are facing impossible choices about pricing and menu options. Bakeries are particularly hard hit because eggs provide structure, moisture, and binding properties that are difficult to replicate with substitutes. Commercial bakeries that supply grocery stores with bread, cakes, and pastries are finding it nearly impossible to maintain consistent product quality while dealing with egg shortages and sky-high prices. Many specialty baked goods will simply disappear from shelves as producers can't afford the ingredient costs. Number 7. Citrus fruits. Your morning orange juice and cooking lemons are about to become luxury items that most families can't afford. Florida's citrus industry, already weakened by years of citrus greening disease, was devastated by two major hurricanes that hit during the critical harvest season. The storms destroyed not just this year's fruit, but damaged trees so severely that production will be affected for years to come. Citrus greening disease, also called huanglongbing, has been slowly killing Florida's citrus trees for over a decade. The disease turns fruit bitter and inedible while gradually weakening trees until they die. There's no cure, and infected trees must be removed and destroyed. Florida's orange production has already fallen to levels not seen since the 1940s, and the recent hurricane damage has accelerated the industry's collapse. California's citrus crops are facing their own crisis from a completely different direction. The state's ongoing drought has forced many citrus farmers to abandon their groves because they can't get enough water to keep trees alive. Citrus trees are particularly water-intensive, requiring consistent irrigation year-round. With water allocations cut by more than half in many agricultural regions, farmers are making the painful decision to let mature groves die rather than continue paying for expensive water that might not even be available. International citrus supplies that might normally fill the gap are also under severe pressure. Spain's citrus-growing regions have experienced the hottest, driest conditions on record. Italian lemon production has been disrupted by extreme weather events that alternate between devastating floods and prolonged droughts. Morocco and Turkey, emerging citrus exporters, are dealing with their own agricultural challenges that limit their ability to increase exports. The citrus shortage will hit the beverage industry particularly hard. Orange juice, once a breakfast staple, will become an expensive luxury item that many families simply can't afford. Lemon-flavored beverages, citrus-flavored seltzers, and countless other drinks that rely on citrus oils and juices will either disappear or be reformulated with artificial flavors that don't taste nearly as good. Restaurant menus will be transformed by citrus shortages. Fresh lime wedges for cocktails and Mexican dishes will become cost-prohibitive extras that many establishments can't afford to offer. Lemon slices for water glasses and seafood dishes will disappear from most restaurants. Salad dressings, marinades, and sauces that depend on fresh citrus juices will have to be reformulated or eliminated entirely. The vitamin C supplement industry is already scrambling to find alternative sources as citrus-derived vitamin C becomes too expensive for most manufacturers. Many supplement companies are switching to synthetic vitamin C or exploring other sources like acerola cherries and camu camu fruits, but these alternatives are much more expensive and available in limited quantities. Number 8. Chocolate and cocoa products. Chocolate lovers are about to face a crisis that will fundamentally change how we think about this beloved treat. West Africa produces about 70% of the world's cocoa beans, and the region is experiencing its worst agricultural crisis in decades. Ghana and Ivory Coast, the two largest cocoa-producing nations, are dealing with a perfect storm of problems that have reduced cocoa harvests by nearly 40% this year alone. Climate change is wreaking havoc on cocoa farms throughout West Africa. The Cocoa Belt, a narrow band near the equator where cocoa trees can grow, is shifting due to changing rainfall patterns and rising temperatures. Areas that have grown cocoa for generations are becoming too hot and dry to support cocoa cultivation. Farmers are watching their family plantations, some over a century old, slowly die as conditions become unsuitable for cocoa production. A fungal disease called black pod has spread rapidly through West African cocoa farms, destroying entire harvests before beans can mature. The disease thrives in the humid conditions that climate change has made more common in cocoa-growing regions. Traditional farming methods that worked for generations are proving inadequate against this new threat, and many small farmers lack the resources to implement more sophisticated disease management strategies. Labor shortages are compounding the cocoa crisis as young people in rural areas migrate to cities seeking better economic opportunities. Cocoa farming is backbreaking work that pays very little, and the next generation is choosing different career paths. Many cocoa farms are operated by aging farmers who don't have family members willing to continue the business. When these older farmers can no longer work, their cocoa trees are abandoned and left to die. The chocolate industry's response to these shortages is already visible in grocery stores, though most consumers haven't noticed yet. Chocolate bars are getting smaller while prices increase. Premium chocolate brands are reducing the cocoa content in their products and using more sugar and other fillers. Some manufacturers are switching to lower-grade cocoa beans that produce chocolate with different flavor profiles than consumers expect. By September 2025, industry analysts predict that premium dark chocolate will be virtually impossible to find at any price. Baking chocolate and cocoa powder will become luxury ingredients that home bakers can't afford to use regularly. Even milk chocolate and chocolate candies will see dramatic price increases as manufacturers compete for limited cocoa supplies. The shortage extends beyond just chocolate bars and candy. Countless processed foods contain chocolate or cocoa as ingredients. From breakfast cereals and granola bars to ice cream and baked goods, food manufacturers are already working on reformulations that use less cocoa or substitute artificial chocolate flavoring. But these alternatives don't provide the same taste satisfaction that consumers expect. Number 9. Specialty grains and seeds. The health food aisles that stock quinoa, chia seeds, and ancient grains are about to become museums of empty packages and price tags that will shock you. Bolivia and Peru produce about 90% of the world's quinoa, and both countries are experiencing severe drought conditions that have reduced quinoa harvests by more than half. Quinoa requires very specific growing conditions at high altitudes, and climate change is making these environments increasingly unstable. The quinoa shortage is particularly devastating because the grain has become a staple for people with gluten sensitivities and those following plant-based diets. As wheat becomes more expensive and difficult to find, more consumers have turned to quinoa as an alternative, driving up demand just as supplies are collapsing. The price of quinoa has already tripled in wholesale markets, and retail prices are expected to increase even more dramatically as existing inventory is depleted. Chia seeds, another superfood favorite, are facing similar supply challenges. Mexico produces most of the world's chia seeds, and the country's chia-growing regions have been hit by unprecedented weather extremes. Some areas experienced severe flooding during planting season, while others suffered through drought conditions that prevented seeds from germinating properly. The chia harvest this year is expected to be the smallest in over a decade. Ancient grains like amaranth, millet, and teff are becoming increasingly difficult to source as small-scale farmers who grow these specialty crops struggle with rising production costs and unpredictable weather. These grains require specific processing equipment and expertise that many facilities don't have, creating bottlenecks in the supply chain even when raw grains are available. Hemp seeds and hemp hearts, popular among health-conscious consumers, face regulatory and production challenges that are limiting supplies. Changes in hemp farming regulations in several states have created uncertainty that's causing farmers to reduce their hemp acreage. Processing facilities that turn hemp into food products are dealing with equipment shortages and regulatory compliance costs that are forcing some operations to shut down. The specialty grain shortage will particularly impact people with dietary restrictions who rely on these alternatives to conventional grains. Gluten-free consumers who depend on quinoa, amaranth, and other alternative grains will find themselves with very limited options. Plant-based protein enthusiasts who use hemp seeds and chia seeds as protein sources will need to find new alternatives that may not provide the same nutritional benefits. Health food stores and specialty grocers that built their business models around providing unique and hard-to-find ingredients are facing an existential crisis. Many of these stores may not survive if they can't stock the specialty products that differentiate them from mainstream grocery chains. The consolidation of the health food market could leave consumers with fewer options for finding alternative ingredients, even after supplies eventually recover. There you have it. These 10 grocery items will vanish from shelves by September 2025, and the signs are already everywhere if you know what to look for. From vanilla extract in your baking cabinet to the quinoa in your health food pantry, the perfect storm of climate disasters, supply chain breakdowns, and agricultural crises is converging in ways we haven't seen since the 1970s. But here's the difference between those who will thrive and those who will struggle through this crisis. The people who take action now, while these items are still available, will navigate the shortages with minimal disruption to their lives. Those who wait until the shelves are empty will find themselves scrambling for alternatives at prices they can't afford. Start building your pantry strategically today. Focus on shelf-stable versions of these items. Learn to use substitutes, and don't wait for the mainstream media to finally acknowledge what's coming. The food crisis of 2025 is not a matter of if, but when, and your preparation today determines how your family weathers the storm tomorrow.